good men die at the age of 40, but they don't experience death until they're much older. You had this machine that just spit out dollar bills. After a while, you would have an abundance of money. So I come along, I'm like, hey, Josh, can I borrow $100 from you? And you're like, 100? Here's like 10,000. I got so much I don't even need it. But we don't have a perpetual money-making machine, but we do have a perpetual love-generating machine. So if I'm loving myself, and then you come along and say, hey, can I get some love? I'm like, here you go. I got plenty. But if I'm not loving myself and I don't have the abundance and you say, can you love me? Where am I going to love you from?
Hey, y'all. Josh Tomioni with the Derelict Podcast. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Would you do me a favor? It will only take you a couple seconds. Whether you're listening or watching right now, will you head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button? It really helps us get this message to more and more people that we can help. Greatly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
Hey, Derelicts. Welcome to another episode of the Derelict Podcast. Looking forward to today. And here's the reason why, is that we've had several people on this show before that are either coaches, therapists, or they work in the men's space, relationship, mental health, etc. And today, we have a dude who claims to be a therapist and a men's coach. We'll see. We'll see about that, Chuck. I don't know. I'm unsold on that idea.
You're not sold yet?
No,
Right.
Those are two very, very different things. So I want to hear about like how you integrate those two, because I've had a lot of conversations with people in the past about what therapy does versus what coaching does. So I'm interested in your perspective on that, which I'll ask you here in a second. But then I'm also interested how you intersect the two. So we'll see. So for everyone watching, listening, here's a couple of things of what we're going to probably get to today. You know how these podcasts go. Sometimes my ADHD squirrel brain takes over. But the idea is we really want to talk about relationship changes, transitions. Like, what does it look like if you're in a long partnership and then you drop out? What does it look like when a marriage is ending in divorce or separation? What does it look like when you were just with somebody for a very long time before you knew yourself, and now you know yourself, and now you feel trapped? What do these relationship changes look like? Chuck's been through some himself. I've been through some, and he has specialty work with nice guys, right? You mentioned this to me on the call, kind of like that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. No More Mr.
Nice Guy.
Yeah, sounds like that was transformational for you. So I'll hear more about that. But before we do, what is, I don't know why I want to ask this question right now, but I want to. What is unique, do you think, about you and how you work with men? Or let me actually pause that question for a second. You can start noodling on that, because that one's going to be a harder one probably for you to answer than this one. Let's just start off with, what are some of the unique challenges do you think that men face today?
Well, many, obviously. One is, and I probably think the biggest one is just like, it's okay to be a man. Not it's okay to be a man. It's good to be a man, you know? And I think that's one of the things that, especially in, today's culture and political climate and all of that, that there tends to be, I think, especially if you're like us, white, middle-aged, man, you almost feel like you have to apologize.
Chuck, you're the problem.
I am the problem.
You're the problem. You're white, you're middle class, and you're a man.
Yeah.
So fuck off. Yeah. You're the problem.
Yeah. So if that's what I believe, or if that's what I'm told, then maybe that's how I'm going to show up, And I think that that's something that's really difficult for men in general, is to just kind of go, you know what? A, what is being a man? What is masculine? Right. And then B, is it really toxic masculinity, or is it just, that's the shadow of masculinity?
Yeah, you're bringing up a lot of good topics that we could all take an hour on each.
Sure.
So let's start with this. So you made an interesting comment about how what society sees being a man is bad.
Okay,
right now.
And that's a big generalization, but sure, yeah.
I mean, I'm asking you, is that what you think? What are you saying right now?
Well, no, I think what I'm saying is that that's what I believed for a really long time. That I believed that I almost needed to apologize for being a man, and that I never saw being a man as actually like being a good thing. I saw it as something that in many ways wasn't wanted, and of course that's based on my experience, based on, my upbringing and all of that. And I think the transformation for me was one day when someone said it's good to be a man. And I had never really heard that before.
Interesting.
Or really thought about it, So
do you feel like it was just ingrained in your brain? You weren't even realizing that you're living out your life, that it was somehow a negative thing?
Yeah, I think, there was really kind of this two things going on. One was I felt like I wasn't man enough. And the other one was I didn't feel like being a man was, I don't want to say that you had to be careful about being a man. One of the things my dad taught me was, he said that, well, women are really fragile and you have to be careful because you can break them really easily. Now, I don't believe that that's true. I believe women have a lot of tenacity and ability to, withstand pain and all of those kind of other things.
For sure.
But the message,
in some ways, a hell of a lot more than a man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But the message was pretty clear, which was be careful with this. As a man, you've got to be careful.
It's interesting you say that, because what I heard you say is that you're living in this dichotomy of two options, right? Too little man, too much man.
Right.
So am I being too little man, and am I now Mr. Nice Guy who's codependent and love addictive and just go along with whatever you say, dear, happy wife, happy life. If you want to go get Chinese food, sure, I don't have an opinion. Yeah. If you want to have an opinion about something, that's fine. I'm not going to bring up my opinion because I don't want to get in a fight, and I don't want to sleep on the couch, and I want to sleep in your bed, and I'll do whatever you tell me. And yes, can I be on top just this one time, please? So there's that. And then there's, I think I'm going to clip that. Can I be on top?
That was good.
Just one more time, because that's going to piss off a lot of people. And I'm just going to do a clip of that just to see what everybody says. And then the second one is, oh God, I can't be this machismo, toxic, evil, chauvinistic asshole who just comes home and beats his family. So what the fuck is the third option?
Yeah. And I think the third option is what I would call kind of the integrated man. And I'm pulling that from No More Mr. Nice Guy. The book No More Mr. Nice Guy, where, an integrated man speaks his truth. He's caring, but he's not a caretaker. He knows what he wants and goes after it. He's unapologetic for who he is, but he's also able to admit that when he's wrong or when he's made a mistake, and able to have the humility to be able to say, yeah, I'm still growing. I'm still changing. I don't know everything yet. I haven't arrived. That he loves himself exactly as he is. That he doesn't feel like he needs to be different than he is. He can just show up and be authentically himself. And I don't think that's something that we were taught. At least, I didn't get that from my dad.
Yeah. So are you familiar with IFS? You're a therapist.
Internal economist. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Richard Schwartz, kind of the founder of IFS, right? As far as I understand it, he wrote an article once that became, I don't know, kind of integral to that therapy. If no one knows what I'm talking about as far as IFS, it stands for Internal Family Systems. Go open up Chat GPT and tell it to give you an explanation of internal family systems, because I think it's fascinating. It's basically, we're all schizophrenics, but no one's a schizophrenic. So go read it. And the 8 C's of the self he has in there. Are you familiar with these? There's calm, curiosity, compassion, clarity, courage, confidence, creativity, connectedness. So he says the 8 C's of your true self. So in other words, you are acting as your most authentic version of yourself when you are in these 8 C's. When you're not in these 8 C's, it's another version of you that's hurt or distressed or, trying to protect you over something. But these 8 C's are when you're living in your authentic true self: calm, curious, compassionate, clear, courageous, confident, creativity, and connectedness. Which I think, I don't know, those are some of the best 8 I've ever heard as far as just actually this is not just to manhood, but that's a lot of what you're saying right now, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's pull that apart a little bit. All right. And the way I would explain it is we're physical, emotional, spiritual beings. Okay. And by spiritual, I'm not talking about God necessarily, but I'm talking about something bigger than me. Right. So physically, I have a physical body. And my body responds to stimuli, and I've got neurochemicals, and I've got hormones, and I've got things that go along in my body. My heart beats, my lungs breathe, my brain operates, right? And then I've got the emotional part of myself, and the emotional part of myself is more of that thinking brain, that language, that the thing that's trying to make sense of the world. And so whenever there's an event that happens, my brain goes into an assessment of that. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Right? Based on that instinctual filtering system, the brain then releases neurochemicals into the body. Those chemicals either make us feel good or bad. And we would call, and so that sensation in the body is what we would call an emotion. The emotion is, I feel afraid. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel jealous. All right. But in the activating event, so first you have the feeling, or you have the emotion, excuse me, and then you have the feeling, and the feeling is the story I tell myself about what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They don't love me. Okay. I'm unlovable. That's the feeling. Oftentimes I'll ask a client, I'll say, well, how did you feel when this happened? And they won't give me an emotion like anger, or they'll say, well, I felt like she was, disrespecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And I think it's sort of a natural thing, because I think the feeling is part of that story. Right. And then you have the you that's you, or the spiritual part of yourself, kind of what he was talking about, those 5 C's. And I think this is the higher part of yourself, where I have the ability then to kind of be the witness to my body. Oh, I'm feeling anxious in my body. Where am I feeling it? Oh, I'm telling myself a story. Okay. The story that I'm unlovable, which is then my belief. And then based on my beliefs is also how I act and I show up in the world. But the you that's you, or the me that's me, is the part of myself that can be in the present moment and witness what's going on, and then decide how to respond. And most of the time we are either in the past or we're in the future. So I'm thinking about things in the past, or I'm thinking about things in the future, but it's only in the present moment that we can do anything. And I think when it comes to, living that higher part of yourself, or that integrated part of yourself, that's where I'm able to kind of separate out the story, the emotion, what's happening in my body, like who am I really, that higher part of myself. And that is the part of myself that I want to bring forward in my interactions with other people, but I also want to bring it forward with myself whenever I'm by myself, because when you're by yourself, oftentimes that's the worst place to be.
Yeah.
Because this brain starts throwing you into the past and future.
Yeah. And the past is often filled with shame and regret, and the future is often filled with unhealthy fear and anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and those 8 C's, you cannot be in those 8 C's without being present. It's impossible.
And I think what those 8 C's do is they call you to the present. Okay. They call that part of you, that you that's you, or that self, that integrated part of yourself, to the present moment. Right. And I think, again, the way the brain and the mind is structured, brain has one job, and that's to keep you alive. Right. And the way it keeps you alive is not by thinking about all the wonderful things that happened in the past, or all the amazing things that are going to happen in the future. It keeps you alive by being, again, when we think about the past, we generally aren't thinking about like all the amazing, wonderful things that we've experienced in life. We're thinking about
what's interesting about that, though, of those 8 C's, one of the C's that's not on there is cautious. I find that fascinating, because we live in a world of caution a lot of times, at least, right? Like as a parent, you got to caution your kid against everything, right? Yeah. Whether it is what clothes they're wearing, having a helmet on, wearing their seatbelt, a lot of things that honestly, when we were growing up as kids, it was like, who cares? Right? Like, I don't know about you, man, but I rode around on my bike without a helmet all the time.
I not only rode around on a bike, but we made ramps and,
right. And jumping off ramp. Exactly. Yeah. And you're still fine and I'm still fine. Yeah. Maybe it explains some of the mental stuff we both have going on. Who knows? But yeah, we're both still fine. I remember going in cars all the time without seatbelts. Yeah. I would ride in the back of my friend's station wagon, literally looking backwards with no seatbelt on. So literally a car could just crash us and murder us and kill us.
What about riding in the back of a pickup truck?
Yeah, all the time, man. I loved riding my buddy's pickup truck. And his brother was freaking crazy, dude. He had an older so this is like my massively hick friend who I love to death. He was like one of my best friends growing up. And I was the city boy who lived in the suburb of 20,000 people, right? They always called me city boy. I'm like, really? City boy? I live in a town of 20,000 people. I don't know if I'd call myself a city boy. Compared to them, though, I was. And his older half stepbrother would just do this crazy shit all the time. And we'd ride in the back of that thing and he'd be, fishtailing all over the freaking place, all over their property. And I don't know. I think I'm okay.
We're fine. Yeah. Right.
But anyway, I think it's interesting because not just to say, hey, let's get a bunch of adrenaline and be a bunch of dudes and go do stuff. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is being cautious is not a part of our authentic nature, according to Richard Schwartz. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. I think, with courage, one of the C's there, courage is I always define it as it's not that you're not afraid. I think you actually need to be afraid in order to have courage. Otherwise, it's just normal, right? It's the ability to move forward through the fear, right?
Courage doesn't exist without fear, because without fear, you wouldn't need to have courage to overcome fear.
It would just be like walking out to the mailbox. I'm not afraid of that, right? So I don't need courage to do that, but I do need courage to push through, to have a conversation with somebody that I think is going to be difficult, to show up in the morning and do the things that to do my exercises in the morning, anything that I'm, moving through that resistance, I think is an act of courage. So I think the cautiousness piece of it then is, the opposite of that would probably be more about the courageous piece of doing the things that scare you, and I think that's a big thing that I would say is maybe missing. At least I felt like some of that was missing for myself, of like always, my mom being like, oh, watch, like we were riding bikes without helmets, but it was still like, look both ways before you cross the street, or, you need to be home by a certain point by dinner time. But, it is interesting that cautiousness is not in probably that higher part of ourselves. And
let's go back to this integrated man, because I like this concept that you brought up from the book, and I'll add the book to the show notes as well for everybody listening. And so if you want to go read No More Mystery, Nice Guy, it'll be in the show notes. So there's too little man, there's too much man, and then there's this integrated man. Now, I don't feel like I see the integrated man much online. Maybe because it's boring. I don't know, right? It's much easier to have just a total simp online, or look at any movie, TV show. It's a great example, right? Sitcoms. Yeah. What sitcom does not have a simp dad as the member? He is an idiot. He's stupid. His IQ is dumb. He doesn't pick up social constructs. He's barely good at his job. Right. From Peter Griffin to Homer Simpson to Everybody Loves Raymond.
But that wasn't always the way it was.
I know.
If you go back into the 60s and 70s, there were shows like Father Knows Best. There were The Family Affair, even the Brady Bunch.
What's interesting about this? One of my dad's an old movie guy, but I mean, he's old, so I guess it makes sense. But one of his favorite movies is The Giant, which is a fantastic movie. I just went back and rewatched it. It was James Dean's last movie before he died. Yeah. Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor. And what was really interesting going back and watching the movie from whenever that was, the 50s, I think. Yeah. Going back and rewatching that movie, some people have this conception that the F's were just these machismo chauvinistic men who said, go fuck yourself to all the women and just do all of my chores and my biddings and do everything because it's all about me. And that seems like a lot of people have that picture of the 50s, which is fascinating rewatching this movie, because this movie, one of the main characters, if not the main character, is Elizabeth, what's her name? Elizabeth Hudson? Taylor. Thank you. I don't know why I'm saying Elizabeth Hudson. Elizabeth Taylor.
Rock Hudson.
Yeah, Rock. I'm mixing them together. Yeah. Maybe they had a child named Elizabeth Hudson. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, Elizabeth Taylor.
Or James Dean.
Is feisty as all get out, and all about like just being herself and being authentic and bringing her true nature, even in an environment which kind of told women to like be quiet and that sort of thing. Right. And it promotes and praises her. So my first thought went to, what are these people talking about? I'm literally watching a movie from the 50s right now that is praising and promoting a woman having her own voice. Yet everything we're told, I wasn't alive in the 50s, neither were you. Everything I'm told about the 50s is male, chauvinistic, women don't matter. I'm watching a movie that completely contradicts all of that won a ton of Oscars, got a lot of notoriety, and was one of the best movies of all time. So that's really fascinating. And it goes back to what you said earlier. And that is, there's our experience, and then there's the perception of our experience. Right. And one thing that I've learned in my life is that there is no true experience, because my experience is just as true as your experience. right? It's the classic, we all saw a car accident scene and somehow all 12 of us have a different reporting of what happened. But in my mind, that is what happened. In your mind, that is what happened. And it's all based on perspective, right?
Right.
If you saw the car accident from over there and you saw the car accident from over there,
Right.
even if we were right next to each other and I had some different glasses on or I was looking a slight different way, there's no way to be 100% in the exact same perceived place to see what's happening, which fascinates me when people start going crazy online because people are perceiving something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we just argue that like you're wrong and you're an idiot because you're perceiving this different than me. So I guess this is a very long-winded question. I'm trying to come back to the integrated man. How does the integrated man do that? How are they themselves, right? But don't fall in that too little man, too much man category. What do you think from the guys you work with?
Sure. Well, let me go back to the perception thing real quick. Okay. So we call that a cognitive bias, right? My thoughts, cognition, bias based on my belief, my experiences, my background, all that kind of stuff. So it's similar to like, let's say we'll call those a lens, right? So I've got blue sunglasses on and you've got red sunglasses on, right? And somebody holds up a lemon, okay? And they say, what color is it? Now I'm going to argue that it's green and you're going to argue that it's orange. Okay. And from that perspective, we're both correct. Right. But that is a distortion of reality. And so we are constantly in this distortion of reality based on our past experiences, our upbringing, our DNA, our gender, so many things that influence that cognition, that thought about what is reality. Right. And one of the things I've learned,
real quick before what you just said, I think is proof of that because the background right next to your head is green.
Correct.
And that was your example was you're seeing green. Look behind me. What color does it look like?
Red.
Orange.
Interesting.
Right. So I don't think it's too far to say that even your brain was thinking about that as you're watching both of us with the colors that we have. Now, is your room green? No, there's a light that is projecting green. Is my room orange? No. If I turned off the orange light that I have behind me, it would not be orange anymore, right? It's mainly white and gray in here, but it looks orange. So I think that's really, really fascinating and really subtle. I think where people get in trouble, and I've gotten in trouble with this for sure in the past, so I'm not saying that I'm perfect here.
Yeah.
I get in trouble for it all the time. It's thinking that our perception is reality.
Right.
It's thinking our perception is actually everyone's reality. Because even if you would have changed your color in the back and that would have been orange and I would have been green, you may have switched that exact analogy in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's just, again, like the way the brain works, right? And it's constantly working in the background. It's constantly, creating stories, right? I mean, even what you just did there was you created meaning out of something. May or may not been, right? But there was a meaning by it based on your perceptions of like, oh, hold on, you've got a green light back there and I've got an orange light. There must be something. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. And I wouldn't have noticed it though if you would have just told the story. Literally, I did not notice that you had a green light in the background until you told the story about the green light. And now all I'm staring at is the green light.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. And that's
right. It's this test, right? I've heard Tony Robbins does this test a lot with audiences. He's like, close your eyes and then look around the room and count everything that you can see that's red. Okay. Right. And then you look around there and people should do this that are listening. This is a really interesting thing. Look around your room right now and see everything that's red and just count it all in your head. Red, 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 red. Okay. Stop. Now what was blue? And you can't name anything. And if you can name something, maybe you can name one thing, but you could name 100 things that are red probably.
Right.
And then if you go back and you look, well, what's blue? Now all of a sudden you're going to see 100 things that are blue, but you're going to miss the things that were yellow because it's where you're focusing on, right?
Absolutely.
Like I said, we've been talking for what, 25 minutes already? Wow, this is flown by. We've been talking for 25 minutes and I did not notice the green light until you said the green light analogy 20 minutes into the
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar to and you can find this on YouTube, but there's a video where you're supposed to, I think there's 3 or 4 basketball players and you're supposed to focus on counting how many times they bounce the ball. And it's like this,
Are we going to ruin it for everybody? Because I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. What happens?
Are we going to ruin it? Well, a gorilla comes through. A dude dressed like a gorilla. And literally, I remember the first time that I saw this video, didn't notice him at all.
Me neither.
All I'm noticing is the ball's bouncing. And it's literally just this guy just walks in the middle dressed as a gorilla.
Dressed as a gorilla. And it's so obvious when you know it, but you're not paying attention to it. You're trying to count the bouncing balls, right? Yeah. And that's what
and everybody
does.
gets frustrated about the bouncing balls too. I remember the first time I did this, it was in a large audience when we used to get together before COVID. Yeah. And there was a couple hundred people in the audience. He showed the video and everybody's arguing like, no, there was 5. No, there was 15. Right. No, there was 8. No, there was 7. And then the guy's like, okay, did anyone see the gorilla? And just the whole room was silent. And what's interesting to me about that is that we're focused on the bouncing ball because that's what we were told to focus on. Hint, hint, propaganda media. We're told to focus on the bouncing ball. We focus on it. And not only do we focus on it, but then we argue with everybody else and make everybody else wrong, even though we're wrong in the first place because we missed the freaking gorilla. Fascinating.
Yeah. And so that's the way the brain works, right? And that's the physical brain that's working, the perception, all of those kind of things like that, right? And then there's the you that's you, that is that authentic part of yourself, the part of yourself that goes, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I need to learn a little bit more. Maybe I need to have a little bit more compassion because my experience is different than somebody else's experience. And I think that's part of what I would call grace that we need to have for each other, which is like every one of us, we're on this planet trying to figure out how to do this thing called life. And there's part of us that, is that animal. At the end of the day, we just want a banana. And then there's that other part of us that's the deeper part. It's like, I really want to be loved and connected and understood and heard and felt. And when I don't have that, I feel a sense of loneliness. And I think loneliness is probably the most difficult of emotions to feel, to feel completely alone.
I love that you worded it that way, that we all need love and grace and connection for each other as well. And one of the reasons I love the way that you said that is that one of my most hated phrases that people say all the time is they are doing the best they can. I absolutely despise that phrase. And people use it all the time.
Yeah, because nobody's actually doing the best that they can.
No one's ever doing the best they can. Now, I understand the intention behind it is to have good thoughts towards that person versus thinking that they're intentionally fucking you. I get that.
Right.
But no one is ever doing the best they can. And what I think it does is it just opens up the floodgate to let people do whatever they want because they're doing the best they can. No, fuck that shit. We can be gracious and compassionate and understanding, like you just said. I love that. I love that. Trust me, man, this happens all the time with the guys that I coach because I coach a lot of guys going through divorce or that are right after divorce. And they're basically just like 5 years behind me. Yeah. And when I see them, there are times where I just get frustrated. I'm like, come on, just like be 5 years ahead. And then I have to realize like, where were you 5 years ago? Like have some love and grace and compassion. Like this guy's going through fucking shit right now. Like that sucks. So do I want to tell him he's doing the best he can? Not really. I just don't feel like that's very encouraging either. What I want to do is I want to look him square in the eye and be like, man, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because you're doing this. I'm proud of you because you're doing this. And if you keep doing these things, I promise you, here's what life's going to look like in 5 years. Right. That to me is a lot more helpful to that guy than, you're doing the best you can.
Absolutely.
Really? Yeah. So I'm just going to go out and murder babies then since I'm doing the best I can. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a stupid, I'll get off that topic.
But I think that to just kind of flip that a little bit, like, because what's the opposite? I'm doing the worst that I can.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's doing the worst that they can. Nobody's like consciously going like, I'm going to do the worst that I can, So if it's not the worst, then it must be the best. But maybe it's just, I'm doing what I know, what I've always done.
There's I don't know why my brain's going here, but Seinfeld has a stand-up where he's talking about how people always say, whenever going to a doctor or something, like, oh, he's the best. He's the best. He's the best. He's like, where's the worst? He's like, they didn't all graduate at the top of their class. Like, there's got to be some C- students out there somewhere that are practicing doctors. And I just love that because I think it's the same in this context. No, maybe somebody is intentionally deciding, I'm not going to do what's good for my life right now. I'm going to medicate. I'm going to fall into these things because I can't handle life and fuck it all. Like there are people doing that. So why would I tell them that he's doing the best he can? He's not.
No, he's doing what he thinks will relieve his suffering, relieve his pain.
Right. And I don't fault him for that, but I'm not going to encourage him with that.
Right.
It's like giving him a trophy. It's like the everybody gets a trophy bullshit.
Sure.
Like I get it. I get it when you're really little. I loved giving trophies out to all my kids when they played soccer and everything. I understand that concept, but the person that I didn't want to give the trophy to, even if they're a little kid, is the person that just sat on the sidelines and then their mom coddled them. I remember one specific little girl. Her mom coddled her the entire time. She sat on the sidelines. She picked grass. She literally wouldn't even play. And I was like, look, if you're not going to play, you're not getting a trophy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is not, I'm not trying to be mean here and have you
Well,
be
it's
the
a
only one that doesn't get a trophy.
participation
You just have to
trophy,
at least participate.
Yeah.
I'm not against participation trophies. If you're participating, I want to encourage you that you participated. Like if you suck at soccer, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
but
as
go
long as
in there and try to kick the ball just one time. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to encourage somebody that they're doing the best they can when they're not trying.
So how'd that go with the mom?
Dude, it was rough. But I'll put it this way. She came late in the season too. I mean, the whole thing was a mess. But I tried to encourage her as much as possible. The girl, I tried to encourage the mom to encourage the girl as much as possible. And I felt like it was a win because near the end of the season, she came into multiple games and she at least ran around and tried to kick the ball. So that was a win for that little girl. Like she was not going to be the star that was scoring all the baskets. It's soccer. The goals.
Yeah.
I sound like a guy who's never played a sport before in his life. She was not the one that's going to go there trying to score all the goals, but I just wanted her to just run around and kick the soccer ball. That's it.
Yeah.
Then it's a win. Then you know what? If she goes in there and she tries her hardest and she tries to kick the soccer ball, she is doing the best she can. So I'm good with that phrase with her. You're doing the best you can. Good job. Proud of you. But not if you're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does this show up in relationships? So one of the things we said we were going to talk about, and then we've gone off on all these other topics, which have been amazing, is how these considerations show up when relationship transitions. But what do you see with guys when they are in the middle of a relationship transition, whether it means that they're getting married, they're getting divorced, they're getting separated, they're leaving their partner, what things do you see these guys question during that?
Well, I think what happens, and this is where, like, let's talk about conflict for a second. So conflict is basically, I have a need and you have a need. Now, the problem is if my need gets met, your need doesn't get met, and vice versa. So now we're in competition. Whose need is going to get met? And that's every single conflict.
Wait. Are you saying that there is no way for both needs to be met? I'm confused by that statement.
No. I'm saying a conflict is two people that starts with two people who have competing needs.
Got it. Okay.
All right. The way we handle conflict and conflict resolution is a zero-sum game. There's a winner and there's a loser. I win, my need gets met, yours doesn't. Okay. And we're brought up, speaking of soccer, of zero-sum games. There's a winner, there's a loser, right? But relationships are a non-zero-sum game. And a non-zero-sum game is similar to like an escape room. We all go in, we all work together, and at the end of the period of time, we either all escape or we all die.
Great analogy. I love that.
So it's a similar kind of thing with the relationship, right?
But it's like a Hunger Games escape room, right?
Yeah.
Squid Games escape room.
Right.
Something.
So when I approach a relationship with I'm the winner, you're the loser, I'm the winner mentality, I'm always going to be in this zero-sum game thing. And then I'm scoring. How many times did I win? How many times did you win? Right. And I think in a non-zero-sum game, it's like we have to consider the outcome. The outcome is, let's say, for example, the outcome is we want what's best for the kids. Okay. Now I have a need, which is I want to see the kids as much as I can. And you have a need that you want to see the kids as much as you can. Right. And if we're focused on us, meeting my need or meeting your need, and we're not considering the greater need, right? And when we can get out of our ego and get back into that part, that more authentic part, those 8 C's that you were talking about, when we can get into that, then I think when two people can approach a situation from their authentic self, get rid of the ego, then you can actually find a solution that does work. It may not work for everyone, but it works the best for the outcome that we're trying to get.
Yeah. This might sound overly simplistic, but some of the best advice I ever got when I was going through my divorce is just never make it about yourself. Always make it about the kids.
Yeah.
And it's not like I grew up in a very conservative religious environment where a lot of the times you were, oh, did you?
Yeah.
So in mine, a lot of the times it was you have to completely forget yourself. Like you don't matter.
Yeah. Jesus, other you, joy, right? I don't know if you had that acronym, but
yeah,
at the bottom.
A lot of them. Like I even remember like a pastor that I really respected back in the day before his whole church exploded. So there's a whole story with that one. But I remember he always used to say, he's like, look, it's God and then your spouse and then your kids
right.
and then your work and hobbies aren't even on the list. Well, you know what else is not on the list is you.
You. Yeah.
You're not even on the list. So
But let
how
me
am
tell you
I
something.
supposed to have a good relationship with God if I don't even have a good relationship with myself? How am I supposed to have a good relationship with my kids if I don't even have a good relationship with myself?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, and this is where the interpretation goes on. I can go on a little sidetrack here, but that's not what Jesus said. And when they came to him, they said, what are the greatest commandments? He said, there are two: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, notice he didn't say love your neighbor more than yourself. He didn't say love God more than yourself. What he said was the love starts with you. The way that you love yourself is the measure in which you love God and which you love others.
Absolutely. And there's a
And you
lot of
can't
there's
love
a lot of
others if you,
subtlety in Jesus'
yeah,
words. And
yeah,
this is a great example of it because he didn't just come out and blatantly say, love yourself, but it's implied. You can't not imply it in that sentence.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the whole point is
Love your neighbor as yourself. That's an, yes.
the
Exactly.
implication is you love yourself. He
Right.
didn't say love yourself, but the implication is you love
Yeah.
yourself. Because what he's not saying, it's clearly evident by this part of the conversation. He's not saying love your neighbor the way that you despise yourself, right?
Right.
He's not saying, hey, you hate yourself and you want to go kill
Mhm.
yourself, so therefore love your neighbor like that. That's not what he's saying.
Yeah. But when you flip that around, then it becomes, okay, I got to love myself first so that from that place, then I can love my neighbor and I can love God. But we
Now-
are not taught that.
I agree. Now help me as a therapist and a coach. How do you make sure that that doesn't turn into it's all about me?
Narcissism, the ego, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, this is where discernment comes in. Okay. My ego wants what it wants in the moment, right? And I have to be really aware of that. And the way I kind of explain it is this, is that there's a natural part of ourselves, the nature, right? The nature, my ego is all about me now, self-gratification. That's natural. All right. It's also natural for us to shit in our pants. It's natural for us to kill other people. So when we're in our nature, that's not necessarily the best thing. And in order to override nature, we need a power that's greater than nature, a supernatural power. That supernatural power comes from the me that's me, whether you want to call that God or Buddha or Jesus or collective consciousness or whatever, that higher part
Higher
of myself.
power, universe, doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah. It's that thing that I can connect with and go, all right, am I doing this out of ego? Right? Am I doing this because I want to win the game and that's going to make me feel good? Or am I doing this because, you know what, I love myself so much that I'm willing to give somebody else some love?
You know what's
And it
interesting?
comes from a place of gift as opposed to a place of I have to.
Yes, 100%. The way you're describing this too also goes back to those two guys that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that's too little and the guy that's too much, right?
Right.
Have you heard of echoism?
No, don't
I
about
just heard of this term the other day. It's basically the opposite of narcissism.
it. Okay.
So-
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So I'll break it down, right? Narcissism has an inflated sense of self. It's all about me. I expect praise. I need admiration, spotlight. I'm going to dominate you. I'm going to manipulate you. I'm going to violate any sort of boundaries that you have, any sort of like, I have a lot of fear, right? I'm really insecure, which is why I'm doing all these things, right? Like people understand kind of, I think, what narcissists are, which also, by the way, just if you're listening to this right now, stop calling people narcissists. This is just my recommendation to everybody, because that word gets thrown around so easily. Like there's very few people that are clinically diagnosed narcissists, right? Mr. Therapist. So let's just easy on the term. We all have narcissistic behaviors. Just chill, give people grace, like Chuck said earlier. So then there's the opposite. Then there's echoism, which instead of having this like grand inflated self, it's no, I'm going to minimize myself. It's that the first guy, right? The Mr. Nice guy, the wasn't not too little man, right? Like I'm uncomfortable. I can't handle praise. I'm going to make fun of myself or just like, kind of dog myself. I don't want any sort of attention. I don't have feelings, just whatever you say, dear. Kind of that codependent, addictive, like you just do whatever you need to do. I'm going to over accommodate. I'm going to lose my identity.
Yep.
And frankly, those are a lot of the times the people that are in relationships with narcissists, right?
Right.
Because they work
Well, you know where that comes from. The story of Narcissus, where narcissism comes from, right? So Narcissus looks in the water and sees his reflection and he falls in love with it.
He's so beautiful that he drowns.
And there's a woodland nymph called Echo. Now Echo's been cursed with, she can only repeat back. So when Narcissus is like, oh, you handsome devil, Echo's like, oh, you handsome devil. Oh, you're most amazing. Oh, you're so amazing. So a narcissist needs to have an echo in order to reflect back to him all of the things that he sees about himself. And so this is when we get into a relationship with somebody, and and I see happen oftentimes is guys, especially nice guys, will get into relationships, generalization here, but we'll get into relationships with women who have borderline personalities, and it's sort of a narcissistic type of thing. They're either the best thing in the world or you're Satan, And so what we do is we become the best thing in the world to try to keep her from making me the worst thing in the world.
I didn't know you knew about my marriage, Chuck.
Well, I developed this test actually for how to spot a woman with borderline personality disorder.
Oh, how's that?
I'm attracted to them.
That's the funniest shit I've heard all day by far. Probably because it hits real hard home, right? Like you've been a therapist long enough to know that this laughter is coming out of truth.
Right. I mean, if there's a dumpster fire, I'm going to that's what that's who I'm going to notice. And
it's really, it's interesting you say that, because, I definitely have some addictive tendencies in my life, and I've talked about them on the podcast several times because I'm open about that. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I failed at pretty much everything I've ever done in life. I've become addicted to a lot of things, and I've gone through it and I figured it out, which is we need more people talking about that, I think, which is why I talk about it. But my only point in saying all of that is that I've definitely been on both sides of the spectrum. Like, I'm not going to just fight at somebody else and say I'm not. But here's the deal. I was a nice guy for so long that I was behind my authentic nature so that I did do that. And the word that has been put on that a lot these days is codependent. Echoism, I think, relates to the same thing, right? Somebody that doesn't, or simp, somebody that doesn't have any balls, that doesn't stand up for who they actually are. I was that guy for a very long time. And whenever I've been a guy like that in relationship and then it changed, well, guess what? The exact thing that you talked about happened. It went from I was the echo to making sure that everything was okay to now, no, I'm actually going to stand up for myself. And they don't like that.
No, because the narcissist can't exist without the echo, right?
Yeah,
so you've got
a bully
this
can't exist without somebody to bully.
Yeah.
It's an argument can't exist with one person. So you walk away or you don't feed into that, and then that just pisses them off even more because now there's no justification for the way they're acting. And frankly, everyone that's acting like a narcissist, again, I'm not calling them that, everyone that's acting like a narcissist is just acting out of insecurity, and they need other people to validate them to keep doing it. And when they don't do it, the insecurity rises because of, instead of me looking into myself to try to figure out where did I fuck up and what can I do now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I need to go find somebody else that validates my terribleness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so then we just perpetuate the cycle. So people never mature. They never grow up. They never get to that higher part of themselves that has the ability to evaluate, to really connect with that deeper part, that's me. Because everything is about me connecting with my ego and believing that I am my ego.
Interesting.
And essentially listening to the tape in my head that's telling me this is what I need. And if I don't get this, then I'm going to feel this sense of emptiness or powerlessness or hurt.
Okay. I'm not going to challenge you on this. Like I said, I might at the beginning. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know why I preface it that way. Maybe I am going to challenge you. We'll see.
Challenge me.
But I want your opinion on this, which is related but not related. What's your opinion about the difference between a therapist and a coach?
Yeah. I'm going to give you a different answer than what we talked about before. Have you ever read The Life of Pi?
No.
The book? Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
Who wrote that? What's it about?
It's was turned into a movie a few years ago. It's about...
I saw the movie. I did see the movie, but I didn't read the book.
All right. So Pi is this boy, right? Now, before he goes on, gets separated from his family on the raft, before that, he is, in the first few chapters, he's at the zoo. And while he's at the zoo, he meets a Christian and talks about Jesus and talks about the wonderful things about Jesus. And Pi goes, I think I'm a Christian. I love this guy, Jesus. And then another day he meets this guy and he's a rabbi. And he's talking to him about God, Alpha, the Omega. And the guy, and Pi's like, wow, I think I'm a Jew. And then he's talking to his, he was raised Hindu. And one day he's in the zoo, and all of a sudden all these worlds converge at once. It's his parents there. It's the Christian, the rabbi, and his, I don't know what you call, leader from Hinduism all emerge. And the Christian goes, oh, Pi, he's such a wonderful Christian boy. He believes in Jesus. And the rabbi goes, he can't be a Christian. He's a Jew. He believes in, what Jews believe. And then his spiritual leader from Hindu, he's like, no, that's not it at all. He believes in Krishna, and his parents are standing there like, Pi, what's going on? What are you doing? Why are you not, choosing sides? And Pi, his answer is, I just want to love God. Okay. And it's a similar thing. I just want to help men. I just want to help men be the best that they can be. So I don't care if I'm a therapist. I don't care if I'm a coach. I am here to help men. I'm here to help them grow, to change, to look deeper in themselves, to get in touch with that part of them that's the you, that's them, right? And if I can do that through therapy, if I can do that through coaching, I don't care what you call it.
What are the 3 biggest mistakes that you see middle-aged men making right now?
Going it alone, not having other men in their life, believing that they're unlovable or that they're I saw this quote the other day. It's great. It said, good men die at the age of 40, but they don't experience death until they're much older.
Mm-hmm.
That I think what happens in this sort of middle-aged place of, well, this is what I was taught. This is what is supposed to make me happy, so I'm going to go chase all of these things. And then I get to the age around 40 sometime and I go, we go through some sort of crisis, a divorce, an illness, laid off from a job, right? And then we go like, everything that I believed, everything that I worked for is shit. I don't know what to do now. And it's at that moment of crisis where men have a choice. And Richard Rohr talks about this, that when we're at that place, we do one of 3 things. Men will either continue to try to climb, or they will go numb and neutral, or they will go deep into the garden, back to the garden. And so it is at that crisis point, I think, that middle-aged point where men receive some sort of, for me, it was a divorce, For you, it sounds like it was a divorce. But I chose not to keep climbing, not to go numb, but I want to go deep. And so that's what I teach, is how do you as a man go deep? Because climbing is just more of the same. Numbing is just living a life of quiet desperation. But if you go deep, right? If you really get to know you and love you and give from that place of love within you, like, I think that's what, becoming a man is all about.
That's a fantastic answer. And I'm trying to relate my experiences and the people that I see, because what I picture is the climbers are, let's say, the majority of guys on social media, the influencers, right?
Yeah.
Like, just run harder, punch faster, get more in your business, have more success, buy another car, sleep with another woman, whatever. Like, just more, which oftentimes, I'm not even necessarily against all of that, but a lot of the times it's more to, again, escape what I'm actually feeling, to escape what I'm actually experiencing, to escape actually understanding me. Men do this, and that's, more acceptable in our society, right? Like, it's more wow, let me try that again. It's more acceptable when a man says, we'll just run harder, get in good shape, make more money. That is much more acceptable than numb out by watching porn, and drinking alcohol and smoking weed and having sex with a bunch of women and getting into another relationship and going shopping and overeating and on and on and on and on, right? Because those are bad. Right. But if I just work my ass off, that's good. Yeah. Or if I just run to ignore all of my emotions, that's good because I'm being physical, which is fascinating because, to your point, like there's guys on both of those all over social media, right? There's the guys that are just like, it's all about the 6-pack abs and the business that's crushing it. And making all the money. That's the majority of guys out there, right? And then there's some that are like, fuck it. I'm just going to do my comedy and I'm going to smoke a bunch of weed and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to party and I'm going to have all these women just like all over the place because why not? And they're doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You can't be in either one of those spots and go deep.
No. You can't go deep.
What's the advantage of going deep?
Well, the advantage of going deep is you learn to love yourself. You learn to actually be in the moment. And you learn to work through conflict and realize, like, let's really figure out, like, what is the outcome that we're looking for here? And let me get my ego out of the way. Let me get my hurt out of the way. Yeah. It's actually, like, I think being at peace. So the other ways are the way to numb out the suffering. And I think the third way, the deeper
Which
way,
by the way, does work. It just works for a very brief period of time. And then
until the problem becomes the problem, right? Like I said,
there's a reason. Let's talk about the two biggest probably addictions in the United States right now is alcohol and porn as an example, right? And those two, they both work because they both numb whatever emotion. If I have a negative emotion, I know that if I drink enough alcohol or I watch enough porn, it's gone for temporarily. Mm-hmm. It's going to come back and it's going to rage and it's going to be even more intense than it was when it left, but it's gone temporarily. So I might as well do it for a little bit.
Well, I have a problem, I found a solution, but then the solution becomes a deeper problem, right? And now I have to, and so I either find another solution that's going to create a deeper problem, or I fix the problem. Okay. And that's that deeper, more work of like, who am I? How do I love? And this was something that was really both hard for me to learn, but so key, was actually like really looking in the mirror and going, I like you. Like if I met you, I would want to be friends with you, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one of my favorite bumper stickers that says, God, help me be the kind of man that my dog thinks that I am. And instead of like become that guy. Like, who is that guy?
Become the guy too. What I always think of is like, become the guy that has as much grace and compassion and love for myself as I do for my kids.
Totally.
Like if I could, there's so much my kids can do and I will love them no matter what.
Right.
I can't say the same thing about myself.
Yeah. And I think that's one reason, God, Spirit, Jesus, Buddha, universe gives us kids.
Yeah, true.
So that we can actually understand what love and grace looks like, and to be able to realize, okay, to love myself and the way that I love my kids. If I showed up in life like that, how would it change things for me?
For sure. I love that.
Look at this. This is kind of an analogy I use is like, let's say you had this machine in your garage and it just spit out dollar bills. After a while, you would have an abundance of money. Okay. So I come along, I'm like, hey, Josh, can I borrow $100 from you? And you're like, 100? Here's like 10,000. I got so much I don't even need it. Right. Okay. Well, we don't have a perpetual money making machine, but we do have a perpetual love generating machine. Mm. Okay. So if I'm loving myself, and then you come along and say, hey, can I get some love? I'm like, here you go. I got plenty. But if I'm not loving myself and I don't have the abundance and you say, can you love me? Where am I going to love you from? And that's why I think that loving yourself is the key, but we're afraid that if I love myself too much, I'm going to become a narcissist. And that is egotism. That's not actually self-love.
Does self-love have to have an element of wanting to better other people's lives?
I think it's a natural outcome. I think that when I am loving me, the authentic me, and I'm taking care of my body, I'm taking care of my mental health, I'm taking care of my spiritual part of me, right? And I'm doing that as an act of love for myself, that it's kind of like there's this outflow that happens. And it's more of like a byproduct of that. I end up helping people, as opposed to I'm helping people because that makes me feel good and that gratifies my ego. And I say this all the time, like there's the shift between being the nice guy and the integrated man is a very small line.
What about being the asshole and the integrated man?
I think it's a small line. It's a shift, and the shift in the way that we approach life. Am I doing this because I want something from you? Or am I doing this because it is a pure act of love, a pure gift?
That's a great question. And what I would add to that question for the people that are listening and watching also is that when you ask yourself that question, I'll bring in one of the 8 C's. Be curious about the answer, right? Don't shame your answer. There's nothing wrong with the answer. There's nothing wrong with you, because that just never goes well. Shaming doesn't help anything ever. But be curious about the answer, because then if I can be curious about that answer, when I ask myself that question, then I can be like, oh, interesting. I wonder why that is. Huh, fascinating.
But I can't be curious without tapping into that me that's me. The me that me has to be the one that's curious.
Sure.
Why am I having this thought? Why am I having this emotion? Why am I having this reaction? Yeah. Is that really what, is that what I want?
It's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Chuck, I appreciate you. I know we got to wrap up. We could probably do a couple more hours on this stuff because it's really good. Yeah. I usually did this earlier on in the episode, but I'll do it now. Where do people find you? What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah. ChuckChapman.com is my website. At ChuckChapman.ma is my Instagram, and at Chuck Chapman is YouTube.
Okay. We'll add all that to the show notes. So don't worry about remembering it. Just go check out the show notes right now and connect with Chuck.
I want to ask you a question though.
Sure.
Okay. The question is at the beginning, you're like, I don't know. Can you be a therapist and a coach? They seem like they're like these two different things. What do you think now?
What do I think is the answer to that question? I think that both, for some reason, Liam Neeson's in my head, have a particular set of skills, right? Like I think that there's a very different set of skills for each. So do I think that somebody could have both set of skills? Yes. Do I think that that's rare? Yes. Do I think it's going to be the most efficient for someone? Probably not. I don't know though. It's a good question. I hate making generalizations. And I also know that most of the people that I meet that I've interacted with that are really good about like, hey, let's look at your childhood trauma. Let's look at all the stuff in the past. Let's, again, my definition is a therapist helps you bring from past to present and a coach brings from present to future. That's the biggest difference. So I just think there's people that are better at doing both sides. Could you do both? Sure. I mean, technically we should all do both for us, all of our lives, right? Like I should always be looking at how do I bring stuff present so it's not bothering me anymore and then be able to move into the future. I should be able to do that myself. Yeah. Can somebody do that together? I don't know. I believe that you can, I suppose. I just don't. I see it as a very different set of skills. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. I do see it as a different set of skills. For me personally, therapy felt like, okay, I've got all of the, okay, now I understand, right? That's the past. Okay. Now what do I do? I think I told you this on our interview. Like spent 3 years in therapy and I got to the end and I asked my therapist, I'm like, all right, I get it. I get what my parents did. I get the childhood trauma. I get all of this kind of stuff. Now what? And he goes, well, you just learn to tolerate it. That's like the empty answer. No, what do I want to do? And where I think coaching is, kind of that future kind of thing, but to be able to kind of like bring those two in to be solid in the present, I do think that that's probably a unique skill set.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you, it's funny that I'm wearing this shirt today. I didn't even do this on purpose, but as a coach, there we go. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
As a coach, I suck at the therapy part. Like I'm just not good. I am not gifted to sit down with somebody and help them relive the trauma of their past to try to heal themselves and move forward. I don't have the patience for that. Yeah. I'm not good at being understanding and empathetic during that process. I'm really not. I'm like, let's go, which is right. More of a coach, right? So I know my skill set and I'm not even going to try it. If you have both, more power to you, man. I think it's awesome. More men we can help, the better.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being on the podcast. And again, for everybody listening and watching, here's again what I'd recommend. First, like the episode if you like it. Even if you're not on YouTube, go over, like it. Bookmark it, save it, send it to a friend. That's the main thing that I want you to do is if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I know this dude who's just going through it right now. Send this to him. See what he thinks. Tell him like, look, man, this is worth an hour. Put it on 2x or whatever you need to do to get us talking faster and make it faster for your life because it's so inconvenient to listen to an hour-long thing. It doesn't matter. If you think it's going to do that, go send him a minute or two that you found really helpful because we're out here trying to help dudes. That's why we're here. Yep. And Chuck, I appreciate you being on the same mission.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for joining us today.
You too. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Until next time, we'll see you later, you derelicts.